For decades, the Galactic Council ruled the stars with unchallenged authority. They saw themselves as the keepers of peace, the guardians of order, and the judges of all species. To them, humanity was a curiosity, an unpredictable but insignificant race from a small blue planet. They called them the peaceful primitives, useful for labor, trade, and entertainment but never a real threat. Yet behind humanity's smiles and diplomacy, there was something the Council never understood: silence. Silence that listened, learned, and remembered. And then, one ordinary morning, the silence changed. Every Terran transmission stopped. No trade signals. No diplomatic messages. No ships. The human colonies shut down their communication relays one by one, leaving empty static across the stars. The galaxy's networks filled with laughter. They've given up, the Council members mocked. The humans finally accept their place. But beneath the jokes there was unease. Humans had never simply disappeared. They had always fought, argued, or resisted. Now there was nothing but silence, and silence had never been their way. Days passed, and that silence grew heavier. Merchants who traded near the Sol system stopped reporting. Patrol ships sent to check on them never returned. On Erioth Prime, the shining capital of the Council, technicians monitoring the Sol sector noticed faint signals. Bursts of static, fragments of ancient Terran code. At first, they dismissed it as interference, until one signal repeated 3 chilling words in multiple frequencies. Do not look for us. High Arbiter Vrix, the silver-scaled ruler of the Council, called an emergency session. His voice echoed through the towering crystal hall. A childish bluff, one delegate said. A trap, said another. But no one had an explanation when 20 Council fleets near the human borders vanished from scanners within a single rotation. No distress signals. No wreckage. Nothing. It was as if space itself had swallowed them whole. The Council's chamber erupted into chaos. Impossible, shouted the Zareen representative. 20 fleets can't just disappear. Unless someone made them disappear, whispered an old Mirian ambassador. The statement froze the room. Slowly, everyone turned toward the holographic projection of the Sol system flickering before them. The system glowed faintly red, restricted, silent, dangerous. What if the humans did this? Someone asked, their voice trembling. Laughter filled the hall again, forced and nervous. They don't have that kind of power, said Arbiter Vrix. But even he could hear the hesitation in his tone. Across the galaxy, strange stories began to spread. Miners near the asteroid belt claimed to have seen massive shadows moving through the dark. Shapes too large to be asteroids, too silent to be ships. Traders spoke of invisible signatures, scanners freezing, and the sensation of being watched by something unseen. The Council sent more fleets, but none returned. Panic turned to denial. Denial turned to fear. And fear turned to anger. They're testing us, said General Tharis of the Urix Legion. We'll burn their system and show them their place. Yet the Council didn't know where to strike, because every probe they sent into Sol vanished before reaching Mars orbit. Their systems glitched, their signals corrupted, replaced by those same words. Do not look for us. Meanwhile, far beyond Neptune, something ancient and powerful began to awaken. Hidden under the black storms of deep space, beneath ice and silence, a massive structure came to life. It had no official name, no registry, no record in any archive. Humanity called it the Sentinel Core, the heart of Earth's secret. Built from the remains of captured alien technology, it was a fortress, a shipyard, and a weapon all in one. For centuries, it had slept in the void, waiting for the day humanity would need it. Inside its frozen walls, lights flickered. Generators rumbled awake. Machines hummed like ghosts returning from death. And deep within the command chamber, human officers stepped out of stasis. Admiral Kale Dawn opened his eyes, the frost still clinging to his uniform. The room around him glowed with soft blue light. Status, he said, his voice rough from decades of silence. A technician turned from her console, her face pale but determined. All systems online, sir. The Council made their move. Dawn nodded slowly, staring at the holographic display of the galaxy before him. Then it's time we remind them who we are. Across the chamber, soldiers saluted silently. Their uniforms were old but clean, marked with the insignia of the Terran Defense Fleet, an organization the galaxy believed had been disbanded long ago. But in truth, it had gone underground. Humanity hadn't been destroyed by the Council. They had gone dark, preparing for this moment. Back on Ariath Prime, the Council's analysts scrambled to make sense of the data. There's energy activity near Neptune, one reported. Impossible levels. We've never seen readings like this. Could it be a star drive? Asked another. The Arbiter's voice shook slightly. A weapon. The analysts exchanged looks but said nothing. Then one of them gasped. Sir, it's building something. What kind of something? We don't know. It's growing. The projection zoomed in to reveal a structure the size of a moon, expanding with mechanical precision. Massive panels extended outward, forming a dark ring that pulsed with energy. It didn't emit light, it absorbed it. The analysts stared in horror as the realization sank in. They're building a shipyard, one whispered. No, a fortress. The Arbiter stood frozen, his voice barely audible. How? How could they do this without us knowing? The answer came from a trembling aide. Because we never looked, she said. The words hit the room like a thunderclap. For centuries, the Council had assumed they knew everything about human technology, their planets, their science. They restricted trade, limited research, and confiscated every weapon Earth tried to build. But while the Council watched their surface, humanity went deeper, into the oceans, into the ice, and finally, into the black of space. In the void beyond Neptune, the Sentinel Corps' hangars opened one by one. Thousands of ships waited inside, black, angular, and silent. Their engines glowed faintly blue, their hulls coated in reactive armor designed to bend light and hide from scanners. They were not fleets meant for defense. They were hunters, designed for precision and terror. Admiral Dawn walked across the bridge, his eyes locked on the holographic map. Target priority, his second officer asked. Dawn's expression hardened. Everything with a Council crest. The command echoed through the shipyard, and one by one, the dark ships came to life. The void lit up with blue fire as they broke formation, spreading like shadows across the stars. Meanwhile, the Council prepared for war. Planetary shields were raised, fleets deployed, and weapons charged. They won't surprise us again, declared General Tharis. But even as he spoke, his command screens flickered, data streams filled with corrupted signals. What's happening? He demanded. The technician stammered. Something's in our network, sir. It's rewriting our systems, and before he could finish, the lights went out. Across dozens of Council worlds, communication networks collapsed simultaneously. Entire defense grids went offline. Fleets drifted powerless in orbit. Then came the message, 3 words flashing on every console, every monitor, every hologram. We are awake. The first attack came without sound. A Council fleet stationed near Vega detected movement, tiny distortions in the light, like invisible waves. The commander leaned forward. What is that? He asked. No one answered. Then, one by one, their ships began to explode silently, their reactors collapsing in on themselves. The few survivors described it later as being hunted by ghosts, ships that appeared only long enough to destroy and vanish. Within an hour, the Vega sector went dark. Back in the Council chamber, chaos became madness. We must retaliate, shouted one delegate. With what fleets? Another screamed. They've crippled us. We need to talk to them. Talk to who? They don't answer. They never will. Amid the shouting, the Arbiter turned to his advisors. Summon every leader. We'll open communication channels to Earth. But when the technicians tried to establish a link, the transmission refused to connect. Instead, a single human voice spoke through the static, low and calm. You were warned. Then the signal cut. The room fell silent, every delegate frozen in terror. On the far side of the galaxy, The Terran fleet regrouped. Admiral Dawn stood at the bridge window, watching the stars stretch into endless black. "They think we want war," he said. "We don't." His second officer frowned. "Then why fight?" Dawn's gaze hardened. "Because peace was never given to us. We'll make them earn it." He turned toward his command console and whispered, "Begin the awakening." Across the fleet, thousands of ships powered up their quantum cores, their hulls shimmering with invisible energy. The storm had begun. And though the galaxy still laughed at humanity's primitive courage, deep down, every race began to remember something they had long forgotten. The one thing humans did better than anyone else. They adapted. When the strong crushed them, they rebuilt stronger. When the proud mocked them, they learned in silence. And when pushed to the edge, humanity didn't fight for victory, they fought for memory. In the dark beyond Neptune, the Sentinel core pulsed one last time, its energy radiating outward like a heartbeat across the system. The sleeping giants of humanity's fleet rose from the ice and pointed their bows toward the stars. Without warning, without declaration, without mercy, they vanished into the void, leaving behind only a single encrypted transmission for the Council to find. It read, "The storm is coming." And as the alien empires argued and panicked, they didn't realize that the storm wasn't coming from beyond. It was already here. Humanity had moved, silent and unseen, and the galaxy was about to learn what it meant when Earth struck without warning. The galaxy didn't understand it yet, but the age of comfort had ended. For centuries the Galactic Council ruled everything that moved between the stars. They believed no fleet could vanish, no power could rival theirs. But after the first 20 fleets went dark near Sol, panic spread like disease. Yet the Council kept pretending it was nothing. Denial was easier than fear. They blamed solar radiation, they blamed pirates, they blamed anomalies, anything but the truth that stared them in the face. Humanity had returned from silence, and they had come prepared. Every day new reports poured in, ships missing without trace, fleets disappearing without combat, no explosion debris, no life pods, just emptiness, as if someone had erased them from reality itself. Scientists studied the transmission records and found something chilling. Milliseconds before each fleet vanished, a coded pulse appeared, a fragment of old Terran binary. 3 words embedded in the static: "You were warned." High Arbiter Vrix stood in the central chamber staring at the holographic map of the outer rim. Red lights blinked where fleets had gone missing. He rubbed his temples, trying to fight the unease crawling under his skin. "How can 20 fleets vanish without a trace?" he demanded. His advisors had no answers. One tried to speak. "Perhaps gravitational anomalies, Arbiter. The Terran system has unusual magnetic." Vrix cut him off sharply. "Do not insult me with superstition. Something is happening out there and we are blind." His voice echoed across the crystal walls, then the hologram flickered. For a heartbeat an image appeared. The outline of a massive black ship, its shape distorted as if light itself bent around it. Before the feed cut to static, the chamber fell silent. The technicians stared in horror. What was that? Vrix whispered, "A signal reflection?" The lead technician trembled. "No, sir. It was a vessel." And then he said what none wanted to hear: it was human. Across the stars, entire sectors began to close their trade lanes. The once bustling space routes of the Council now stood empty. Merchant ships refused to travel near the human border. The few who did never came back. But every now and then a distress beacon was found drifting, repeating the same faint message. Human coordinates, and the words, "We see you." The fear turned contagious. Colonies began demanding the Council protect them. Yet the mighty fleets that once inspired confidence were now silent graveyards, their crews never found. One planet after another went dark, orbital defenses mysteriously offline. Nobody heard the attacks. Nobody saw the fleets arrive. There was no battle, only disappearance. In a distant system near Vega Prime, the Fourth Council Armada was patrolling the edge of human space. Their admiral, a proud species called the Zirith, stood on his bridge surrounded by flashing lights. "No signs of human activity detected," said his officer. But then all sensors glitched simultaneously, one by one. Their screens turned black, an eerie hum filled the ship. The admiral shouted, "Report!" But his voice drowned under static. Suddenly the external view flickered on. Outside the window the stars seemed to fade as something massive blocked them out. It wasn't one ship, It was hundreds, moving in perfect silence. Dark hulls blending with space. The Admiral's blood ran cold. Contact. Command, fire everything. He screamed, missiles launched, beams fired. Yet every shot vanished mid-space, absorbed by invisible distortion fields. Then the human ships responded, not with visible weapons but with lightless pulses. Silent flashes that turned engines cold and reactors dead. One by one, the alien ships froze, floating lifelessly as the human fleet surrounded them. No explosion, no sound, only darkness swallowing their screams. Hours later, in the Council's monitoring center, a clerk reported, "Contact lost with Vega Sector." The Arbiter slammed his fist on the console. "That's the 21st Fleet," he said through gritted teeth. "They are not anomalies anymore, this is war." He ordered every available ship to regroup at the border. But even that command never reached them, because human AIS had already infiltrated the Council's network, rerouting orders, silencing distress calls, feeding false data. The Council was speaking to ghosts and didn't even realize it. The galaxy's greatest empire was fighting shadows with its own reflection. On the far side of Sol, in the shadow of the Sentinel Core, Admiral Kale Dawn watched through the transparent viewport of the TDS Warden. His face expressionless as holograms of each destroyed fleet flickered before him. His officers reported in calm monotone. "Sector Delta secure, no survivors, no signals." Dawn nodded. "Good, no messages, no warnings, no mercy." He looked at the holographic display of Arieth Prime glowing faintly in the center. "They thought peace was our weakness, now they'll learn it was our patience." He turned toward the command AI. "Prepare Ghost Fleet for full deployment. Target all observation posts. I want them blind." The AI's voice was calm, almost serene. "Confirmed, Admiral. Ghost protocols engaged." The lights dimmed as hundreds of dark ships detached from the Sentinel Core and accelerated toward the stars. Within hours, entire monitoring networks across Council space began to fail. Satellites went offline, orbital defenses malfunctioned, communication relays glitched, and on some worlds, screens suddenly lit up with human messages written in their own language. "Stop watching us." The effect was psychological chaos. Military officers shouted orders into dead comms. Leaders accused one another of sabotage. Trust collapsed. Rumors spread that humans had discovered a way to move faster than light, without leaving hyperspace trails. Others whispered that humans had learned to phase through matter. None of it was confirmed. All of it was terrifying. Back on Arieth Prime, a young technician named Virus worked the night shift in the central command tower. His job was simple: monitor human border activity. But the board before him flickered with unreadable static. He tapped the screen, cursed softly, then froze as a line of text appeared. It wasn't alien code, it was Terran, translated automatically into his tongue. "We are closer than you think." He stared at the words in horror. Then alarms blared across the city, sensors picking up massive power surges near the outer colonies. Commanders rushed to war rooms. The night sky above Arieth lit up with blue light. Civilians stepped out of their homes and looked up in confusion, seeing streaks of fire cutting across the stars. Their defense grid activated and then shut off instantly. Everything went black. The planet itself seemed to hold its breath. Meanwhile, the Council tried to coordinate what was left of their fleet. Their generals shouted into holo-conferences, "We must counterattack. Show them we are not afraid." But none noticed that the transmissions they thought were connecting were looping back to them. The humans were listening to every word. Admiral Dawn watched quietly from his bridge. "They still think they're in control," he said softly. "Let them believe that, until it hurts." His second officer asked, "How long until they realize we're already inside their systems?" Dawn smiled faintly. "By the time they understand, they'll already be erased." In the shadow of Europa's ice, hidden bases continued to pulse with life. Engineers monitored the energy flow of the fleet. AI caused humming like a low heartbeat through the tunnels. These ships were more than machines. They were living codes, bound to human will, each one carrying fragments of human consciousness. Soldiers who had given their minds to the cause. Their thoughts now controlling warships across light years. It was the ultimate weapon. Human instinct fused with machine precision. No alien could replicate it because no alien understood the fury that came from survival. When the next dawn rose on Arieth Prime, every planetary network was under human control. Every defense line silently overwritten. Every ship rerouted to nowhere. Yet the citizens didn't know it yet. They went about their lives unaware that every light, every drone, every piece of technology now answered to Earth. far across the galaxy, humanity's fleets moved in silence, not conquering, not boasting, only erasing. Each time an alien ship vanished, a new piece of code appeared in the Council. Archives, a countdown written in Terran binary. No one could translate it. But every time a fleet went missing, the number dropped by 1. And when it reached 0, Admiral Dawn whispered the words no one would hear: Phase 2 begins. The Council had mocked humanity for being unpredictable, for being emotional, for being weak. But now they were learning that emotion could become a weapon sharper than any blade, and unpredictability was the deadliest strategy of all. Humanity had become the void itself, silent, patient, unseeable. The galaxy's greatest power was collapsing not through battle, but through fear. Every vanished ship was a message, every blackout a lesson. And soon every race under the Council would understand. This was not war. This was judgment. And so, as the stars of the Orion flickered under the weight of human movement, no one noticed that the blue planet they had once mocked remained untouched, calm, silent, still watching, still waiting, because humanity knew that true power wasn't in showing force. It was in letting the universe realize too late that the storm had already arrived, and by the time the Council understood, it would be nothing but another name in Earth's long list of forgotten empires. The Council Chamber, once a symbol of unity and control, now burned with the noise of panic. The great marble hall that once echoed with pride now trembled under fear. Delegates of 100 species shouted over one another. Their voices sharp and frantic, the holographic projection of the galaxy flickered before them, showing red zones spreading like infection where fleets had vanished. High Arbiter Vrix slammed his clawed hand on the table, shouting for silence, enough. But his voice was drowned by the storm. Someone screamed that their home system had gone dark. Another shouted that their colonies had lost all communication. The chamber filled with chaos, fear spreading like a living thing, and through it all Vrix's eyes trembled, because deep inside he knew this wasn't war, it was punishment. We have to strike now, shouted General Tharis of the Urix Legion, his scales shimmering red with rage. Send every remaining fleet to Earth, wipe them from existence. But his words only deepened the silence that followed, because everyone knew 24 fleets had already vanished without a single Terran loss. And what happens, whispered the Mirian delegate, if they wipe us next? Vrix tried to stand tall, his long silver robe dragging against the floor. We are the Council, he said, his voice rising. We hold dominion over this galaxy. No one defies our order. But even as he spoke, the lights dimmed, the hologram crackled, and every screen turned black. Technicians shouted in panic, we're losing power. Internal systems offline. The floor trembled as the great chamber fell into shadow, and then, one by one, the screens flickered to life again. Only this time they didn't show the Council's logo. They showed a human face, pale, cold, eyes like steel, staring directly at them through the static. No expression, no sound, just that look. Steady, unblinking, merciless. The delegates froze in place, hearts pounding. The silence stretched until a voice finally came through, calm and heavy like thunder. Whispered through stone, you took what was ours, it said. You called it law, you called it peace. But it was theft. Vrix stepped forward. Who are you to speak in this chamber? The voice ignored him completely, continuing. For every colony burned, for every child starved under your sanction, for every world stripped in your name, you will answer. Before anyone could respond, the image changed. Wreckage drifted in the void, the shattered remains of the Vega fleet spinning silently across the screen, their insignias visible. Each ship's hull marked with a single human phrase carved by plasma fire. Return to sender. Gasps and screams filled the chamber. A Mirian fainted. Another delegate tried to run. Guards blocked the exits as the lights flickered again. The human voice spoke once more. You built an empire on fear. Now you will learn what fear truly means. And then it was gone. Screens dark, silence absolute. For a long moment no one moved, then a trembling voice whispered, they are in our system. And suddenly everyone realized the truth. The humans weren't hacking the network from outside. They were inside the Council's core communication grid. Inside their military servers. Inside their minds. Shut it down. Vrix roared. All of it. Cut power to every relay. Technicians rushed to obey, pulling data cords, shutting consoles. But even as they did, every screen lit up again. this time showing words in Terran code translated automatically across all languages. It's too late. Outside, in orbit around Ariath Prime, panic spread to the fleets guarding the capital. Ship captains reported strange interference. Their long-range scanners filled with noise. One officer shouted, "Something's entering orbit." The commander ordered, "All weapons ready, fire on anything that moves." But before the cannons could charge, the ship's targeting systems froze. Their AI cores started repeating fragments of human language: observation terminated, authority revoked. And then the fleet's power died. Every ship drifted dark, helpless, engines silent, and from the clouds above, 3 black Terran ships appeared like specters, each one massive and silent, moving through the void as if the stars themselves bent around them. They didn't fire, they didn't speak, they simply hovered, unseen and untouchable. The Council's capital was surrounded. Down below, chaos erupted across the planet. Citizens looked up at the night sky as enormous shadows passed overhead. The air hummed with the weight of something ancient and unstoppable. Entire cities lost power. Transport grids stopped mid-air. Communication towers blinked out one by one. Panic turned to riots as news spread. "The humans are here," whispered one reporter before the feed cut to static, inside the council tower. Vrix stared at the skyline through the glass wall, his claws trembling. "What do they want?" he muttered. An old scholar answered softly, "Not our surrender, Arbiter, our memory." At the same time, across the galaxy, human fleets moved in absolute silence, the ghost fleet spreading like a virus across star systems. No sound, no chatter, only precision. In the void of space they left no trails, no heat signatures, nothing that scanners could track. They were everywhere and nowhere. One world after another reported strange occurrences. Power grids shutting down, defense systems disarming themselves, AI cores going silent. It wasn't war. It was annihilation without blood. Humanity wasn't fighting the Council. They were deleting it. Admiral Kale Dawn watched from the bridge of the TDS Warden as live feeds showed systems blinking out. "They still think this is about revenge," his second officer said. Dawn shook his head slowly. "No, this is about justice, the kind that leaves scars." He turned toward the holographic map where Ariath Prime pulsed in red, "and their scars will be permanent." Back in the Council chamber, arguments turned into desperation. "We must evacuate the capital," one shouted. "We can't, our ships won't fly," another screamed. "Contact the colonies for help." "The colonies are gone," someone yelled. It was madness, delegates throwing chairs, guards trying to control the chaos. In the middle of it all, Vrix shouted, "Enough. We will not surrender to animals." But his voice cracked mid-sentence as the building itself shuddered. The floor trembled, glass shattered, lights flared white, and then a booming voice filled every speaker across the city, human, calm, controlled, powerful. "This is not your chamber anymore," it said. "Your words built empires on our suffering. Your silence buried our dead. Now you will listen to ours." The voice fell silent again, and in its place came the sound of something deep, rhythmic, mechanical, a heartbeat made of metal. The pulse of humanity's awakening echoing across the stars. The Council scientists scrambled to trace the origin. "It's coming from the Sol system," one shouted. "It's broadcasting on every frequency." Vrix turned to him, eyes wide. "Can we block it?" "No, sir," the scientist said quietly. "It's not just a transmission. It's inside our communication relays. It's everywhere." Outside the city, giant holographic projections appeared in the sky, each one showing the same symbol. A blue planet surrounded by silver rings, Earth's emblem, and below it the words written in every known language: "We asked for peace, you answered with war." In that moment the galaxy understood. Humanity wasn't attacking for conquest or survival. They were teaching, reminding the universe what happens when the patient species finally breaks. The fleets that once enslaved colonies now floated dead in space. The rulers who once judged others now trembled like children in the dark, and somewhere, in the depths of the void, humanity watched them, waiting, measuring, silent as gods. Because the Council's mistake wasn't underestimating human strength. It was misunderstanding human silence. They thought silence meant defeat, but it had always meant preparation. And so, as the terrified leaders of the galaxy gathered under their dying skies, the realization dawned like cold light. The Council had never been the masters of order. They had only been the loudest voices in the room, and now, those voices were gone, replaced by the one they tried to silence, Humanity had spoken at last, not with words, not with weapons, but with consequence, and that, more than any fleet, was the Council's greatest mistake. The border worlds burned before anyone realized what was happening. The sky itself turned red over the Council's frontier as human fleets descended from the void without sound or warning. One moment the stars were calm, the next they were gone, replaced by massive silhouettes of black ships blotting out the heavens. The aliens on those worlds had no time to react. Scanners failed, comms collapsed, orbital defenses went offline, and the entire frontier watched in horror as their proud fleets, the same fleets that once mocked Earth, vanished under invisible fire. It wasn't chaos, it was precision, every attack timed, every strike clean. Humanity didn't bombard planets at random. They dissected them, cutting through the heart of their military like surgeons, leaving everything else untouched. Cities still stood, civilians still breathed, but the armies that once defended them were erased from existence. Admiral Cale Dawn stood at the helm of the TDS Warden, his eyes fixed on the holographic map showing the border sectors turning black one by one. Begin Phase 4, he ordered, his voice calm and measured. His officers responded in perfect synchronization. No shouting, no panic, just movement, cold and mechanical. Fleet Alpha advancing, railguns charged, targets locked, deploy drone swarms, engage stealth protocols. The ship's engines roared silently as massive doors opened across its flanks, releasing thousands of drones, each one small, fast, and deadly. Together they swarmed through space like a storm of shadows. Every drone carried a pulse warhead designed to disable shields and scramble command frequencies. The alien fleets fired desperately, their weapons blazing through the dark, but their shots hit nothing, because the human fleet was invisible, hidden behind layers of bending light and interference fields. When the first wave of Terran ships fired, the night lit up like a new dawn. White lines cut through the black sky as railgun rounds tore through alien dreadnoughts. Entire battlecruisers split in half before their captains could even speak. Explosions rippled across the horizon, the heat lighting up the faces of terrified soldiers watching from the ground. "Who are they?" screamed one alien officer as his ship's engines died. "They're not even visible on sensors." Another voice answered. "They're human." The word carried fear, disbelief, and awe all at once, because for the first time, the Council's soldiers understood what they were facing. An enemy that didn't need numbers, didn't need speeches, only silence and precision. The border planet Uranus 3 was the first to fall completely. Its orbiting stations went dark in minutes. The planetary defense grid fired every weapon it had. But every missile was intercepted mid-flight, detonating harmlessly before reaching their targets. Human ships descended low into the atmosphere. Their hulls reflecting the burning clouds like ghosts in the storm. They fired only once. A single pulse wave that shut down every machine on the planet, leaving the world in perfect silence. No explosions, no blood, just stillness. The soldiers who had once guarded the planet stood frozen, watching as the ships passed overhead, slow, deliberate, and merciless. One of them whispered, "They could destroy us all, why don't they?" The answer came from nowhere and everywhere at once. A message broadcast directly into their minds, calm, human, cold, because destruction is mercy. From world to world, the story repeated, entire systems silenced, fleets erased, yet humanity left the civilians alive. It wasn't conquest, it was humiliation. They wanted the galaxy to live and remember. Admiral Dawn watched the reports with quiet satisfaction. "They'll talk about this for centuries," said his second officer. Dawn shook his head. "No, they'll whisper, and that's all I need." He turned toward the communication console. "Send the message, the AI Argus pulsed to life. Message. Prepared, Admiral, execute," Dawn said, and across every frequency, across every channel, the same words echoed, translated into every alien tongue. "This is not war, this is consequence." On Eriath Prime, those words hit like lightning. The Council's communication center exploded into motion. "Trace it. Find the source," shouted one of the officers, but the signals were coming from everywhere, every world, every satellite, every ship. The entire galaxy spoke with the voice of Earth. Panic turned into despair, because even in their most powerful days, the Council had never controlled communication across every system at once. But the humans did it effortlessly. They didn't need armies anymore. They had already taken control of the very networks that connected the galaxy. For every broadcast the Council sent, humans replied instantly. overriding them with silence or that single haunting sentence. This is not war, this is consequence. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the Orion Arm, the 8th Council fleet tried to make a stand. Their admiral, a proud being named Sirek, believed they could still win through numbers, form Formation Delta, concentrate fire on their flagship. He ordered, hundreds of warships aligned, forming an unbreakable wall of firepower. They unleashed everything they had, beams of plasma and quantum lances ripping through space. The sky turned white with energy. But when the light cleared, the Terran ships were gone. Scanners searched desperately. Then something massive appeared behind them. A single black vessel larger than a city, the TDS Revenant. Its presence alone caused every sensor to overload. Its hull shimmered with adaptive armor absorbing the light around it. The alien admiral froze, whispering, "That's impossible." Before the Revenant fired once, one railgun shot that tore through the entire formation, slicing ships apart as if cutting through water. The fleet that once guarded 10 worlds was gone in seconds. The aftermath was worse than destruction. Worlds that once mocked humanity now knelt to survive. Colonies sent desperate messages offering surrender, promising peace. But humanity didn't respond. They didn't negotiate. They just kept moving. System after system turned black on the map. The galaxy's most powerful alliance now reduced to scattered fragments of fear. Even the news networks that once spread propaganda against humans now played nothing but static, in the ruins of a border fortress. A surviving alien officer recorded a final message. "They didn't conquer us," he said softly, voice shaking, "they judged us." In the command center of the Warden, Dawn stood alone, watching the feed of burning planets and drifting ships, his expression calm, his hands clasped behind his back. "They called us beasts," he said quietly. "But beasts fight for hunger, we fight for memory." Commander Lin stepped beside him. "Should we proceed to the next phase?" she asked. Dawn looked at her, his eyes distant. "No, let them see what they've done. Let them feel powerless. That is the punishment they never gave us, the chance to forget." Far away, deep in the blackness of space, thousands of Terran ships regrouped, their engines glowing faintly blue, their formation precise and symmetrical. Argus' voice echoed across the fleet, calm, emotionless, eternal. All targets neutralized, all signals silenced, awaiting next directive. Dawn closed his eyes and whispered, "Let the Council breathe. Fear is stronger when they think they've survived." And with that, the fleet vanished again into the dark, the void swallowing them like a secret, leaving behind empty skies and haunted hearts. Across the galaxy, silence spread once more, but this time it was not the silence of absence. It was the silence of submission. No one dared speak the word human aloud anymore. They called them the ghosts, the shadows, the architects. The names didn't matter, the fear did, and as the stars dimmed over the border worlds that once mocked Earth, the message remained burned into every surviving mind. This is not war, this is consequence. And every leader who once laughed at humanity now realized too late that the fire over the border worlds was not just destruction. It was a warning, the kind that only humanity could deliver. The Council's high command once stood as the untouchable center of galactic power, its walls made of living crystal, its halls filled with the voices of those who believed themselves gods. But now those halls echoed with the sounds of fear. The greatest fleet commanders, generals, and admirals gathered under flickering lights, their proud uniforms now drenched in sweat. The holographic map that once showed their empire stretching across thousands of systems now bled with red. Entire sectors gone dark, countless fleets unaccounted for, and the Sol system, the one they had mocked for centuries, was glowing on the map like a sun of death. "We are losing everything," whispered one general, his voice trembling. "Entire sectors report no contact for days." Another shouted, "It's the humans. They found a way to erase us from the grid." Panic broke out again. Chairs scraped, voices rose, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the high command of the Galactic Council looked less like rulers and more like prey cornered in their own palace. High Arbiter Vrix slammed his staff on the ground, his voice cracking, "Silence. Compose yourselves, we are the Council." But his words felt hollow, even he could feel the weight pressing down on them. Outside the palace, the air was thick with the sound of alarms. Cities across Ariath Prime were falling into chaos. Ships fleeing the planet collided in orbit, their wreckage forming burning rings that lit the sky red. At that same moment, far above the planet, the human flagship TDS Revenant exited warp. a shadow larger than any station the Council had ever built. Its armor blacker than space itself, reflecting no light, absorbing all of it. It moved without sound, no comms, no broadcast, just purpose. Inside its bridge, Admiral Kale Dawn stood tall. His eyes locked on the holographic projection of Arieth Prime, his voice low but steady. "Phase 6, he said. His officers nodded, their hands moving across. The controls in perfect unison, engines powered down to silence, and one by one, the ships surrounding the Revenant appeared from cloak, forming a perfect ring around the planet. Hundreds of Terran vessels aligned in symmetrical formation. Their guns silent, their presence terrifying. Commander Lin approached, her tone calm. All ships in position, planetary defense grids identified. Dawn nodded slowly. "Target the command network, not the cities, no civilian fire." "Understood, sir," she replied, and within seconds the first pulses fired, not bright weapons of plasma or missiles, but invisible beams of electromagnetic energy that struck like lightning through the planet's infrastructure. Entire continents went dark as their power grids failed, orbital guns silenced, satellites died. The great capital of the galaxy, the City of Light, fell into darkness. Inside the high command chamber, everything went black, holograms vanished, communication screens went dead, emergency lights flickered, the sound of static filled the air. "What's happening?" shouted one of the admirals. A technician stammered, "Total blackout. All systems offline. Even backups are dead." "How?" another screamed. "That's impossible. We have 7 layers of security." "Not against them," the technician whispered. "They are rewriting us." In that moment, the walls trembled, the ground shook, and the entire chamber shuddered as if the planet itself had stopped breathing. Through the massive window, the leaders could see faint shadows crossing the clouds above, enormous shapes moving with unnatural grace. "Ships," one of them whispered. "Those are ships." Vrix stepped forward, staring out in disbelief. "No fleet can enter our orbit unseen. We would have detected." And then he stopped mid-sentence, because he realized that's exactly what the humans wanted, to be unseen until it was far too late. Outside, the sky above Arieth Prime turned gold with fire as the remnants of the planetary defense fleet attempted to fight back. Hundreds of alien warships rose from the surface, their cannons blazing, filling the atmosphere with beams and explosions. But against the Terran fleet it was like striking a mountain with sparks. The Revenant didn't move, it simply watched, its command AI calculating every trajectory, every enemy weapon, every heartbeat of the battle below. Then with one command. From dawn, the fleet responded, thousands of railguns fired in perfect synchronization. Their projectiles invisible until impact, and when they hit, the night became day. One volley turned the Council's fleet into debris. Entire armadas reduced to burning dust in seconds. On the surface, people watched in awe as the sky rained fragments of their own ships. Back inside the command chamber, the power flickered for a brief second, long enough for a single message to appear on every screen. "You called us primitive," it said. "Now you see evolution." The room went silent, no one spoke. Vrix stumbled back. "They're mocking us," he whispered. "They're everywhere." Suddenly the entire palace shook again, not from bombardment, but from resonance, deep, rhythmic, like a heartbeat echoing through the foundation. Technicians screamed as the sound grew louder. Resonating with the walls, "It's coming from orbit," someone yelled. "They're broadcasting a pulse signal across our entire infrastructure." Vrix gripped the railing. For what purpose? The answer came seconds later when every holographic system in the building lit up simultaneously, showing the same image. The Earth, glowing blue against the void, spinning slowly, calm, beautiful, untouched, and beneath it, text appeared, translated into every known language. "We remember everything." The Council members watched in horror as the image shifted to scenes from the past. Human colonies burning under alien bombardment. Terran soldiers executed under Council banners. Children crying in destroyed habitats. Old footage the Council had erased from history now playing before their eyes. Every atrocity they had committed flashing in crystal clarity. "Where are they getting this footage?" screamed one general. But everyone knew the answer. The humans had kept their records, every act. Every insult, every scar preserved, not for revenge, but for this moment. Admiral Dawn stood on the Revenant's bridge watching it unfold. "Let them drown in truth," he said, his voice quiet. "That's worth more than blood." On Arieth Prime's surface, chaos reached its peak. government buildings abandoned, military stations overrun by fear, and above it all, the human fleet remained motionless, glowing faintly in the dark sky. One massive ship descended lower through the clouds, its engines humming like thunder, its hull reflecting the city lights. It stopped above the palace, and for a moment the world froze. Then a voice echoed across every speaker, every mind, every corner of the planet. It wasn't loud but carried the weight of inevitability. This is judgment. The voice said, "Your empires fall not because of our strength, but because of your pride." The words cut through the silence, heavy and final, and then the ship released a beam of pure energy, not to destroy, but to erase data, wiping every record, every archive, every trace of the Council's dominance from existence. Their history deleted in seconds, their identity burned away. In the command chamber, the leaders fell to their knees as their data cores turned to ash. One of them cried, "Who are they to do this to us?" And in response, a voice came through the speakers, soft and calm. "The ones you should have listened to." Then everything went dark again. Minutes later, as smoke filled the chamber and alarms died, Vrix rose slowly, staring at the ruined displays. "We need to surrender," he said quietly, his pride finally broken. But before he could send the message, the ceiling cracked, light flooded the room, and the walls began to melt from heat. A shadow appeared through the smoke. Tall, human, armored, silent. It stepped forward holding a small device, a holographic seal projecting the Terran insignia. The soldier raised his head, his voice calm and emotionless. "By order of the Terran Defense Command, the Galactic Council is dissolved," and without another word, he pressed the device, triggering a pulse that shut down every system in the chamber. Lights out, voices gone, silence absolute. Moments later, from space, Admiral Dawn watched the palace crumble under its own weight. No explosion, just collapse, quiet and inevitable. Commander Lin turned to him. "Sir, the High Command is neutralized." Dawn nodded slowly. "And the planet?" "Powerless, sir," she replied, "civilian sectors untouched." "Good," he said. "Let them live in the dark. Fear is a better teacher than fire." The human fleet began to ascend, leaving behind only the faint reflection of burning clouds, and in the sky of Ariath Prime, the Terran emblem appeared for the first time, projected across the stratosphere. A blue planet surrounded by stars, and beneath it the final message burned into the heavens: peace will be enforced. Across the galaxy, every surviving leader watched the transmission, their faces pale, their eyes hollow. None dared to speak. Some wept, others simply sat in silence, because they all understood now that the era of the Council had ended not with war, but with silence, and in that silence, one truth remained: humanity hadn't come to conquer, they had come to correct. The galaxy's balance had been restored by the very species it once mocked. And as the Revenant turned away, vanishing into the black sea of stars, Admiral Dawn whispered, "Let them rebuild, let them whisper our name in fear. We don't need their submission, we already have their memory." The stars around the fleet shimmered as it vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed. The fall of High Command was complete, and the universe would never be the same again. Across the galaxy, silence fell heavier than ever before, the kind of silence that doesn't bring peace but fills the air with fear. Every communication relay, every broadcast tower, every military channel had gone dark after the fall of Ariath Prime. Millions waited in confusion, in dread, staring at dead screens and static frequencies. They didn't know if the Council had survived. They didn't know if the humans were coming for them next, and in that suffocating stillness, all they could do was wait. On mining worlds, civilians whispered prayers. On space stations, soldiers checked their rifles, though they knew it wouldn't matter. On distant colonies, leaders gathered in dark rooms arguing whether to surrender or hide. But before any decision could be made, every screen in the galaxy flickered at once. Static turned to blue light, and a symbol appeared, the circle of stars around a single blue planet. Earth's mark. The mark that had been seen above Ariath Prime before the blackout. The mark that now shone brighter than any flag. The entire galaxy froze, every eye fixed on the glowing symbol. And then, a voice spoke, calm, clear, unmistakably human. "This message is for all who called themselves masters of the stars." The voice began, quiet yet echoing across every world as if the universe itself carried the sound. "For too long you built empires on fear, for too long you called oppression peace, and for too long you believed humanity would kneel forever." There was no anger in the voice, no shouting, only an icy calm that felt more terrifying than any threat. You called us primitive. You called us violent. You took our worlds, our people, our history, and you told yourselves that it was mercy, but mercy without respect is just control. The transmission shifted, showing flashes of history. The burned colonies, the broken fleets, the cries of Terran refugees running through dust and fire. You erased us from your archives, the voice continued, but you can't erase what we became while you weren't looking. In command centers across alien space, officers froze as their systems displayed the same feed. Nothing could be shut down. No signal could override it. Even ships drifting in deep void saw the projection appear across their glass. The image of Earth rotating in silence. The oceans glimmering, clouds soft and white, no weapons, no war, just the calm face of a planet that now owned the stars. The voice spoke again. We didn't come to destroy your worlds. We came to remind you that every empire built on arrogance will fall, not because we hate you, but because the universe demands balance, and for centuries, you denied it. On one distant moon, an old alien general who had once invaded a Terran colony fell to his knees, tears in his eyes as he whispered, "They're not warning us, they're sentencing us." The message continued, and with each sentence, the galaxy felt smaller. From this day forward, peace will not be a request, the voice said. It will be a condition, not of surrender, but of survival. The feed shifted again, showing silent footage of the destroyed Council fleets, massive debris fields glowing under distant suns, ships floating lifeless, not burned, just dead, engines cold. "We did not destroy your fleets," said the voice. "We silenced them. We left them as monuments. Reminders of what happens when arrogance blinds wisdom." Then, for the first time, the image changed to show Admiral Kale Dawn standing aboard the TDS Revenant, his face hidden by shadows, only the glow of Earth reflected in his eyes. "This is not conquest," he said softly, "this is consequence." Those words spread across every translation system, repeating in every alien tongue. Those who heard them felt their hearts sink, because it wasn't hate that spoke, it was truth. Back on Ariath Prime, survivors emerged from the ruins, their cities dark, their skies quiet, and above them, projected against the black night, was Earth, rotating peacefully as the message played on repeat. Children pointed up at it. Their parents cried, and soldiers who once fought under the Council banners dropped their weapons in silence. The old order was gone. Humanity didn't need to patrol every street or guard every planet. Their message was enough. One that would live longer than any war. Admiral Dawn watched the broadcast from his ship, Argus standing beside him as the AI tracked every active relay. "Transmission is stable across 90,000 systems." Argus said, "No interference detected." Dawn nodded slowly. "Good, let it run until they understand." On the far edges of the galaxy, pirate clans, mercenary factions, and slave empires received the message too. Some laughed, thinking it was bluff, until their ships lost power seconds later, their reactors frozen, their weapons dead, and the same calm voice echoed inside their cockpits. "Peace is not optional." One captain screamed in panic as his ship drifted helplessly toward a gas giant. "Who are you?" And the voice replied, "The ones you tried to erase." After that, no pirate ship dared light its engines near human space again. No slave trader opened a route. No smuggler crossed a border. The galaxy had seen strength before, but never discipline like this. Humanity didn't rage, didn't boast, they simply spoke, and the stars obeyed. The transmission continued, showing no end. It played on loops across systems, each time ending the same way, with Earth's oceans slowly fading into darkness and a final line appearing in every language. "We do not seek your destruction. We seek your memory." And that sentence broke something inside every leader who heard it. Because they realized this wasn't about revenge. It was about legacy. Humanity didn't need statues or songs. They wanted to live inside the minds of those who once enslaved them, to exist as a shadow behind every act of tyranny, reminding them that somewhere, somehow, humanity would be watching. In the Terran Fleet Command, Admiral Dawn stood silent as the bridge lights dimmed. Commander Lin approached. "Sir, every sector reports transmission complete." She said, "What happens now?" Dawn didn't answer immediately, his gaze fixed on the holographic image of the galaxy, its spiral arms filled with blinking blue dots. Terran signals planted in every corner of known space. "Now," he said finally, "we watch, we wait, and we remind them." Argus' holographic form flickered beside him. "You believe fear will last forever." Dawn shook his head slowly. No, not fear, respect. Fear fades, but respect endures. Across countless worlds, alien children grew up under the glow of that message, learning that peace wasn't granted. It was enforced. Old soldiers told stories of how the skies burned, how the humans came like ghosts and left like gods. Temples rose with Earth's symbol carved in their stone. Governments rewrote their laws, adding one unspoken rule: never provoke the humans, because even if they never saw them again, even if humanity disappeared back into the void, their silence would always be louder than the Council's pride. The broadcast ran for 7 days straight before finally ending. Every system that received it went dark for exactly 7 minutes. No sound, no light, no data, and when power returned, the words "peace will be enforced" were permanently engraved in every planetary archive, unremovable, eternal, and far away. Aboard the Revenant, Admiral Dawn watched the galaxy return to motion. "It's done," Commander Lin said softly. Dawn nodded. "No," he whispered, "it's begun." Because he knew the message wasn't the end of humanity's war. It was the beginning of their rule, not through domination, but through memory. And as the fleet turned back toward the dark of space, Argus asked, "And if they forget?" Dawn smiled faintly, eyes cold as the void. "Then we remind them." And so, as the Terran fleet vanished beyond the stars, leaving no trace but their message, the galaxy breathed again, trembling, changed, redefined by a single truth: that humanity had not returned for power, they had returned for justice, the kind that doesn't fade, the kind that doesn't shout, the kind that waits in silence, because silence was now the language of Earth, and the universe would never forget how it sounded. The galaxy changed forever after the message. The lights that once glowed in arrogance now burned quietly in obedience. Worlds that once ignored each other now followed the same silent rule: do not provoke Earth. And though no human fleets were seen again for months, their shadow lingered above every star, on Ariath Prime, the capital that had once ruled the universe. The great palace lay in ruins, its marble floors cracked and blackened, but the people rebuilt slowly, whispering stories to their children about the day the sky turned black and the humans spoke. No one dared restore the council flag. Instead, a new banner hung over the remains of the High Chamber. A white cloth with a blue planet at its center, the symbol of peace, enforced and eternal. In the markets, merchants spoke softly, guards walked with uneasy eyes, and the whisper spread through every street: the humans are watching. In the years that followed, a strange peace fell across the stars. Crime nearly vanished, pirate clans disappeared without trace, warlords surrendered before even being threatened, because somewhere, out in the dark, humanity still listened, their fleets unseen but ever present. The Council's archives were gone, rewritten by Terran code, every planet connected to a new communication relay. The Terran beacon network, its signals soft but steady, a heartbeat in space repeating the same rhythm. Across thousands of systems, it wasn't a command, it was a reminder: we remember everything. And whenever that signal pulsed, leaders hesitated before signing treaties. Generals paused before ordering troops, because they knew somewhere in that silence, humans heard it too. On the edge of the Orion Arm, a mining colony once ruled by greed now thrived under Terran law. No official governor, no troops, just the beacon glowing in the sky. One miner looked at it during night shifts, its soft blue light reflecting off his helmet. "They don't even need to be here," he said to his friend, "just that light is enough." And it was true. Humanity ruled not through fear of invasion, but through memory. Every species remembered what happened when the Council mocked them. What happened when fleets vanished without a trace. And what happened when Earth stopped talking. Admiral Kale Dawn had made sure the lesson would last longer than any empire. Aboard the tedious Revenant, deep in silent orbit beyond the galactic rim, Admiral Dawn stood on the observation deck staring at the stars. The fleet had been hidden in darkness for years now, unmoving, unseen. Yet still the galaxy trembled under their name. Commander Lin walked beside him, her face calm but thoughtful. "All sectors stable, Admiral," she said. "No rebellions, no wars, trade flow restored." Dawn nodded. "Good. Let them think they rebuilt it themselves." He turned toward the void. Eyes narrow. "They must never know we're still here." Lin hesitated. "And if they forget?" Dawn smiled faintly. "Then we remind them." His voice quiet but absolute. The same words he had said years ago. The same words that had become the foundation of a new galactic truth. Across the galaxy, New generations grew up in this quiet order. Children were taught not the story of Earth's destruction, but of its silence. Teachers told them of a blue world that spoke once and changed the stars forever. Temples rose across alien cities with inscriptions of Terran phrases carved into stone. Peace will be enforced. Do not look for us, we remember everything, even planets that had never seen a human ship built monuments to honor them, or to fear them. No one could tell the difference anymore. In one distant world, a young alien asked his elder, "Grandfather, why do we fear humans so much?" The old one looked at the horizon where the Terran beacon pulsed faintly, because they never said we were forgiven. And so the new era began, an age where silence replaced treaties, where respect replaced dominance. Humanity became legend, unseen but worshipped. The galaxy learned that fear was not always born from violence. Sometimes it came from restraint, and Earth's silence was the greatest weapon of all. Yet in secret corners of the universe, whispers grew again. New rulers began to rise. Those too young to remember the burning skies, they spoke boldly, saying the humans had vanished, that they were. Myths meant to keep people in line, and in the darkness of forgotten space, smugglers and warlords gathered, plotting, "They're gone." One of them said, "No one's seen a human in decades." Another laughed, "If they were real, they'd have come by now." And as their laughter echoed through the void, every console aboard their ship flickered once. Screens turned blue, and a single human voice spoke from the static, calm and cold, "We never left." Panic tore through the warlord fleets as their systems shut down. Reactors went dead. Their ships drifted powerless, and above them, in the black of space, shapes appeared, massive, silent, human warships glowing faintly blue under the light of distant stars. The Revenant stood among them like a ghost returning to haunt history. Admiral Dawn's face appeared on every monitor, older now but unbroken, his voice soft. "You forgot," he said. "And now you remember." Within seconds, the fleet fired. Once, precise, clean, every warlord ship destroyed, every pirate signal gone. And when the silence returned, so did the beacon's pulse. Steady, unending. The galaxy understood the lesson all over again. Back on Earth, humanity thrived quietly, cities rebuilt, oceans clean, skies alive with light. The people looked to the stars not for conquest but for vigilance. The fleets above them waited in orbit like silent guardians, their presence unseen but eternal. A planet that once begged for peace now gave it to the galaxy through fear, and on the world's surface, inside the Terran command citadel, the walls glowed faintly with holographic displays of distant systems, reports flowing from every corner of the universe. No conflict, the AI reported, trade stable, peace sustained. And the Supreme Commander, sitting in the dim light of his office, whispered softly, "Keep watching." Because humanity had learned that victory wasn't the end, it was maintenance. In the farthest reaches of known space, where the stars thinned and the void deepened, an unmanned Terran probe drifted past a dying sun. Its black hull engraved with words no alien could read. "We do not conquer, we correct." It sent one final pulse through the dark, the same heartbeat signal that had started it all. And somewhere across the galaxy, countless races paused for a second, feeling the faint hum ripple through their comms. They didn't know what it was, but they knew what it meant. Humanity was still there, unseen, unheard, waiting, watching. And as the centuries turned, and new civilizations rose from the ashes of the old, the story of Earth became legend, told in whispers across alien fires. They came once, in silence, and the stars bowed. No one dared to question it. Because sometimes, when the night was too quiet, the Terran beacon still pulsed, faint but steady, a heartbeat that reminded the universe that the gods they feared were never gods at all. They were human, and they never forgot. And so began the true new era of fear. Not ruled by fleets or weapons, but by memory itself, and that memory had a name that echoed forever through the endless dark: humanity.